you're back. I'm so happy you're back. Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at, in the 40S course, we're going to look at 5.2. This is transformations of sinusoidal functions, part 2. All right, this is all still T4, outcome T4. And I'm going to give you a little idea or hint. If you want to play around and just kind of get a little more extra practice and just kind of see how these graphs look and how they transform, it's a great idea to go to www.desmos.com. It's an online calculator, and it's great to help you verify answers, and you can have a lot of fun with this. So I'm going to use this in class just to play around and give you guys questions and stuff like that. So you'll have seen it in class. Okay. Now, here's a little summary of what is what in terms of sine and cosine functions. If you are given a graph, what you're going to do is you're going to read off some information. Now, to get the a value, we look at the maximum and the minimum, subtract them, and divide by 2 to get our a value. You could also just read it off the graph, but let's say you're just given some points, that's what you would do. Here for D, you're going to take the max and the min, you're going to add them together and divide it by 2 to get your midline D value. Your period is 2 pi divided by B. And if you are looking for B, you're most likely going to read the period off of the graph, and then you're going to go 2 pi divided by the period that you read one full cycle of. And this is looking for the phase shift. So if you're looking for the sine function and you want to write the equation for the sine function, I should say, and you want that C value, you look at for your starting point at the median, okay? And that's going to give you your phase shift. And for cosine function, you want to look at the starting point at the maximum. So, and that's only because when you're looking at sine, you start at the midline like that. And for cosine, when you start at there, and then it goes like that. All right, so that's what that's referring to. For this example here, I've gone through and done some of the work. I'll walk you through it though. Here you've got this graph, and you have to write the equation in both sine and cosine. So first thing I did was I read off the maximum and the minimum values. So the max I got was 6, the min is 4. I take that to I use that in here to find my A and D value. Okay, so I subtract the max and min, divide by 2, I get 5. For my D, I take my max and min, add them together, divide by 2, and I get 1. So those are my A and D. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, now my period, I'm going to read from here to here. And now this is only half, right? It would be ideal if I had a max to a max, if this went all the way back up to like here, or a min to a min. So from here, and then if I went backwards all the way back down to here. But I don't have that on this graph. I just have max to min. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that value, so that this is like 2, right? From max to min, and then I'm going to multiply that by 2, and that's going to give me 4. So my period is 4, and I use that to figure out my B value. So 2 pi divided by my period is pi by 2. Now if I'm looking at cosine, I want to find my C value. I start at the top. So this is the max, and you see it's right on 0. So my C value is 0 for my cosine function. And for my sine, now my sine isn't as easy to see, or I could just look right here. See, it starts right in the middle. It's plus 1. So if I want to shift this way, I'm going to call it plus 1. If I want to shift this way, I'm going to call it minus 1. So what I've done in this, when I worked this out, I was looking at it this way, where this ended up being minus 1 over here. You can see here, I've put everything together. So y equals 5 sine pi by 2 bracket x plus 1 close bracket plus 1. All right. Now the reason that I didn't do this the reason why I didn't choose +1 for my C value was because then my sign would be going down and then I'd have to account for it by a negative here. So I didn't want to bother with that, so I moved it to the left one, made this +1, and then this A value stays positive. Okay, now for my cosine, cosine was a little easier because my max started right there, and I've got y equals 5 cos bracket pi by 2x plus 1. All right, don't forget your y equals, folks. That's worth half a mark. Okay, next question here. So this one, you're going to plunk out your max and your min, and you're going to figure out your A and D value from there. That's easy. The next thing is you're going to look for your period. So we're looking for one full cycle. Now I've actually got one full cycle here, and I could see that it's a width of 2. All right, just by reading it off my graph. Then I use that to find my B value. So 2 pi divided by 2, that's pi. And if I'm looking for cosine, I would start up here. I'm just kind of, imagining what it would look like by using this. And I would have a negative 0.5 there. That's where my cosine would start. My sine, if I were to extend it all the way here, I could read off this value here, but this time I decided, well, I've got a sine. This is really a sine right here, but it's just flipped. It's just reflected like this. So I accounted for that with a negative value. So I ignored, I said, okay, my shift is 0, but my A value, instead of it being +3, I'm now making it -3. And so here are my two equations that satisfy that graph. All right, now the next one here, it's in words only. It says the point -27 is a max of a sine function, of a sinusoidal function. The next consecutive max occurs at 6, 7. And the range is -1, 7. Okay, so what I did was I drew a little sketch of what I have. And then from here, since I have a max and a max, I've got two max. I'm going to assume that my min is in the middle. If this is a cosine and it's starting up there, okay? So I'm making a few assumptions as I'm going along. I can figure out my max, that's 4, and sorry, not my max. I can figure out my A value using my max and my min, using my D value using my max and min, and then I can read the period. I can assume that the period is going to be from the max to the max, and I'm given max here and max here, so use the x values, find how much is in between them, and I get 8. Using that to figure out my B value, I get pi by 4 for my B. Now here comes the part that kind of hurts my brain a little bit. I hope it doesn't hurt your brain as much. So we're looking for the phase shift. So here, C, for cosine, I'm starting here. I've got my max there, okay? So that's why my cosine, my C value is -2. Originally, let's say it would start up here, right? But instead it shifted to that way, so that's why I have that. And now for my sine, if I had a sine function, then it would start at the 0 here and it would reach my max over here. If I were to imagine that this was here instead of where it is, this would be +2, right? But I don't actually have a +2. What I have is a -2. So how many units do I have to move over? I have to move over 4 units to the left. So that's why I get my shift of -4 for sine. Putting all those together, turning around, doing the hokey pokey, and these are 2 possible answers for the question that is given here. All right, so now make sure you have your brackets and all that stuff. There's a few questions here, and there's a couple of more questions on the following 2 pages before the homework. That's on page 250. So I want you to give these a try, and we're actually going to have a look at it in class, all right? Or you could check the answer key to see if you've done them correctly. So happy trails, folks. Enjoy doing your homework, and remember, ask questions.